Hey everyone, and thank you so much for checking out another video here on my Simply Happy Marlo YouTube channel. If this is your first time checking out my channel and my videos, thank you so much for stopping by. I would love if you liked the video, if you do end up enjoying it, and of course subscribing to my channel. I have many other videos. I recently looked at, I have a little over 100 now, and I'm so close to 200 subscribers. I would love to hit that goal. I actually am planning to do a giveaway once I do hit 200. So if you can help me out by subscribing, that would help me out a lot. I actually have looked at my analytics. Not that I really care too much about it, but I did see that many of you all that are watching aren't subscribers, and I would really love to have you on board so I can hit that personal 200 subscribers goal and do a giveaway to give something to one of you. So please subscribe, and if you're a returning subscriber and follow and watcher, thank you so much. So as you can see in today's title, I am going over just every job I've had. I've seen it is definitely a growing trend here on Facebook, just to kind of go over the general list. And of course, for certain places, I'm not going to discuss exactly where the location is, because privacy, but I will definitely share what I was doing at that job and what kind of job it was. So I do have my list kind of right behind my camera. So if I look over to the side, just know I'm looking at my list because I didn't want to forget any specific job, because all of them really did shape who I am today. So let's just jump off with babysitting. I started babysitting at a very young age, or I guess same general age that most people do, around like teenager age, when you want to start earning your own income, and when you sometimes, get allowance from parents, sometimes don't. So therefore, like, whether you do or do not, you just want to make your own money, and want to know that it's coming from, hard hours spent doing something. And so for me, that was babysitting. I absolutely loved babysitting growing up. It was one of my favorite things to do, whether it was for neighbors down the street or it was for family friends, their kids. I pretty much grabbed any babysitting job I could get, and I absolutely loved it. For the most part, it was usually anywhere from like 2 to 5 or 6 hours, and then I'd go home and be done for the night. But yeah, I've always enjoyed babysitting. I did it all the way up through college years, which I'll get into further because that went a little more in depth as far as babysitting. My next job after that was being a religious school teacher at my local temple. I was a huge part of my Jewish community where I grew up in South Florida. And so being a religious school teacher was really, really important to me, mainly because I went to a private school for the very first few years of elementary school, and I learned I learned the Hebrew alphabet, I learned all of the prayers, I learned everything that I was supposed to during religious school hours, during regular hours at the private school that I attended. So I ended up helping out my teachers and obviously then, classmates a lot, where most of the time during religious school hours, my teacher would split up the class and she would teach half the class, whatever the lesson of the day was, and I would go off into either another room or another section of the temple, and I would teach that side. Now, of course, like for that, I didn't get paid for it the first few years because I was in religious school myself, and had to go through the religious school program to graduate it. But once I got to like senior year and past that, and I kept, of course, and I hadn't moved to college at that point yet, during senior year, they did pay me, which was amazing, because I was literally doing what I had learned during elementary school. So it was a lot of fun for me. I really, really enjoyed it. And I miss it, truthfully. I do miss it. And I did go back to religious school teaching many, many years later, during my time in college. Around the same time, so around between like the ages of like 15 to like 17, 18, I did get a normal, regular kind of like after school weekend job at one of the local restaurants. It was just, there was no specific cuisine. It was kind of just a regular, how do I express it? Like just, I guess, American style, regular restaurant. I mean, it wasn't like specifically Italian. It wasn't Mexican. It wasn't any, any specific ethnicity. It was just kind of like American cuisine. I really enjoyed it. I was a hostess there. I absolutely loved being a hostess. And then in between like, you know, the rushes of people, I would help waitress, and they did pay me a little extra for that, which was really nice. Of course they didn't have to because I was really just helping. But I did get a little extra at the end of each night for helping to, you know, bring food to people's tables and helping to bus tables and all of that. And I really, really enjoyed that job, and it was pretty close to home. So that was a pretty nice perk. Shortly after that, I worked at a frozen custard shop, which still to this day I love. And every time I go down to South Florida, I visit this exact frozen custard shop because thankfully, even with the pandemic and everything, it somehow stuck through it all, which I'm so grateful and so thankful for. Even though I haven't obviously been able to go home to South Florida in the last year and a half, which just is crazy to me. But anyway, for obvious reasons, I didn't go home. But the frozen custard place stuck through it, made it through, and they are doing well. I miss them so much. It was, honest to God, up until that point, I have to say, even with, you know, the religious school and babysitting that I loved, and I did enjoy the, you know, the hostess and waitress job, that had to be through those several, you know, teen years. At that point, that got to be the best job. And it wasn't just because of how amazing the frozen custard was. It was homemade. We had incredible, you know, different flavors. We always were creating new ones. In between customers, we were, of course, allowed to make a sundae to enjoy throughout the entire shift. And we were constantly coming up with new sundaes and new milkshakes, and we got to present them to customers, and we got their opinions, and sometimes they were added to, you know, the menu permanently. Sometimes they were added temporarily or seasonally. We had a ton of fun with it. And I had a really great time with the coworkers there. We really became, as silly as it may sound and as cliche as it may sound, we really became a family. Few of us did hang out outside of the job, which was really cool. And yeah, it was a really fun job. I really enjoyed it. I miss it. And hopefully the next time I go down to Florida, I try to make a visit to that frozen custard place every time I go to South Florida, because to me, it just isn't a trip home without it. So yeah, on to the next one. I worked at this one. I'm obviously for certain jobs, I definitely will say the company because of they're a nationwide, you know, incorporation. So the next place I worked at was Dollar Tree. As a cashier. I absolutely love that job. As most of you that subscribe to this channel and have watched my and have watched videos on this channel for quite a while, you all know how much I love Dollar Tree. It is one of my absolute favorite places to go. So getting a job there was just sublime. I absolutely loved it and loved my time with Dollar Tree. I got to see all the new products come out. I got to grab them, of course, right away if I wanted any new product, and was always helping customers finding products or helping them to create, you know, different crafts and DIYs and help them with, you know, their decor or with, you know, a gift and like a gift that they were getting together for a special occasion or for somebody in their lives. I had a lot of fun with that job. I do miss it, but, you know, certainly anybody that's worked in the sales in the sales world and doing that kind of job understands it took a lot, you know, that kind of job in general takes a lot out of you. And it was a good job, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that it wasn't at all. It was a fantastic job. It just physically took a lot out of me, which I'm sure you can imagine, because I, you know, of course, like in between customers, and if we were having a quiet slump, I of course would have to help with, you know, boxes that had come in and unboxing everything and doing all of that. So it was I don't want to say it was a hard job. It was a really pretty easy job, actually. But there was just a lot entailed in the job and the little side jobs that you had to do that entailed, you know, that took a lot physically out of you. The next one is Vca Animal Hospital. I absolutely loved getting this job, and I was a receptionist there. It was such an amazing job. It opened my eyes just into the animal field in general. It's not anything that I ended up going into, obviously, later in life or ended up going to school for, but I definitely did enjoy my time there. I got to meet a lot of incredible people who I worked with, and I got to meet several people from the community bringing in their pets. Fortunately, I also got to meet quite a few celebrities who had adopted or purchased animals from surrounding areas that brought their animals to us to get, you know, the first, post-adoption, checkup and shots. So they would bring them to us. So I fortunately did get to meet quite a few celebrities through that job. I'm not going to go into detail who, because for obvious private reasons. But it was a terrific job, and I really enjoyed my time there and really enjoyed the people that I work with. And actually there are 2 people that still work there that worked there when I was just leaving, like when I was getting ready to leave that job, for college. During college, I didn't really work so much. I mean, I worked, you know, odd jobs here and there, but my main focus obviously at the time was school. So I mainly focused on that. And that brings me kind of to my next job, which was nannying. It gave me a lot of freedom to, of course, have classes when I needed to have class, but then also gave me the freedom to, because it's college and because you get to choose your schedule, I got to nanny a lot for different people that were in direct correlation, you know, with and worked for the college itself that I went to, and community members in the city that I lived in. So that was, you know, very rewarding as somebody that has, ever since I was little, felt and had the knowledge and gut instinct that I am meant to be a mom, and hopefully eventually I will get to that point. Still, I haven't gotten to it yet, but, you know, very soon, hopefully in the next 5 or so years, that's the goal. But anyway, besides that, it got to give me a lot of experience with kids, not just, you know, from my babysitting years prior, but nannying, like, pretty much more or less full-time is a full-time gig, and it's no joke, and it's so much fun, and the kids that I got to nanny for were absolutely incredible. Of course, you know, just in any babysitting/nannying job, there's always, you know, situations that come up that are not easy to deal with, and there's always, you know, bad behavior here and there, but I never, luckily, really, really luckily, I never had any kids that were, you know, too terrible where I had to heavily discipline them, or I had, you know, to call their parents to ask them how I should deal with the situation. And there was never, thankfully, knock on wood, there was never any, you know, emergencies. There was never anything bad in that way. So I was very, very lucky. And a lot of the families that I did nanny for, I ended up having lasting relationships with, so much so that several of those families I actually still am in contact with. And I speak to some of the kids still that I babysit and that I was nanny for, which to me is just one of the most awesome and rewarding things, to know that I was a part of their childhood. I took care of them when mom and dad were busy, when their parents were busy, and I got to spend so many of those formative years with them. And now to still have a friendship with them so many years later, it's very heartwarming. And I truly, truly do love all of the kids that I was a nanny for and that I babysat. They all brought warmth to my heart. They all meant, and still means, the ones that I still talk to, mean so much to me. And if any of you are watching, you know who you are. I love you. Let's get to the next one. The next one was during college years and ended up lasting a few years later after college ended for me, was Bath and Body Works, another retail job. As I mentioned, retail can be quite physically taxing, but it was a very rewarding job. I got to, be a part of an amazing company. I was there with Bath and Body Works for about 6 years. And so through those 6 years, I got to test out and, have a personal testimonial for all of the new scents that came out during those 6 years that I was with them. And I got to work with incredible people. I got to meet so many different facets of people in the mall that I worked in, that I never would have met had it not been for, them coming into the shop. And of course, we had repeat customers, and the managers that I had that went in and out of the job, or ended up going to different locations or just left the company in general. They were fantastic to work with. There's easily about 10 coworkers that I still talk with to this day. And I'm so unbelievably grateful to that job for literally introducing me to those people that I'm still in touch with 10 plus, 15 plus years later. I'm so grateful to Bath and Body Works for that alone. The next job after that was being a camp counselor. Now, if you don't know my history of camp, where have you been? Honestly. I mean, answer in the comments below. I'll give you a second. Okay. For those of you that don't know, or those that are new to the channel, I have been going to sleepaway camps since I was about 3 or 4 years old. Now, granted, of course, at that young of an age, I wasn't able to be a camper until I was about 6 or 7, like in that vicinity, because that's usually like the first bunk is at any camp usually allows like 7 to 8-year-old. Anywhere from like the 7 to 10-year-old age is where the first age bracket of going to sleepaway summer camp starts for most camps. It may have changed, obviously, now. I'd have to look it up, but back then when I was young, I will be 36 this July, but back when I was younger, anywhere from like that 7 to 10 age is when you joined your first bunk as an official camper. So the first several years, my mom was a nurse actually at several of the camps that my sister and I went to. And so I had a nanny for the first few years during those summer periods where my mom was, off being a nurse at the camp. My sister is 6 years older than me, so she was a full-fledged camper at that point, at all the camps that we went to. And then I was just the kid roaming around camp with my nanny. And then when I got to be, of course, camp age, I got to start going to sleepaway camp with my sister. And I absolutely loved it. I ended up going to sleepaway camp for 20 years of my life. Very happily, very proudly. So many good experiences. I could probably make a whole other video about just camp entirely. And I might, if any of you all are interested. Actually, feel free. Please do. Leave me a comment below if you want to hear all about my camp experiences. Any stories, in particular that you want to hear. Anything camp related. Let me know and I'll be happy to make a video. Let me know in the comments below or message me on social media, any of that good stuff. Fast forward to being a camp counselor. I finally got to the age where I got to go through the counselor and training program at one of the camps that I went to. And then the following year, I got to actually be a full-fledged paid camp counselor, and I absolutely loved it. It was one of the most amazing, extraordinary, magnificent jobs throughout all of the jobs up until that point. It was the most rewarding, the best. And anybody that has gone to camp, whether day camp or especially sleepaway camp, understands the term you live 10 for 2, meaning you live 10 months for those 2 months. And I was truly a 10 for 2 kid my whole entire life of those 20 years. And so to be a camp counselor and help shape kids, help shape them during the summer with all of the camp experience I had prior to that meant so much to me to be able to give back all of that amazing experience and all of that knowledge that I had gained through being a camper prior. Being a counselor was it was the best thing in the world. And I still miss it. I would definitely go back if I got the right opportunity, and the right, finances to do so for the summer, because, it is only a summer job, but I would definitely go back in a heartbeat. I miss it so much. I truly, truly miss everything about sleepaway camp. Anyway, next one is, let's see, hold on. I have to look at my list on the side. Is the apartment companies that I worked for, back in the city that I was living in, outside of obviously camp. So I was a marketing / leasing agent for quite a few apartment companies in the city that I lived in, during those like college and after college years. So I got to gain a lot of knowledge as far as what it takes to run an apartment complex and everything that goes into renting out an apartment and getting it cleaned and giving tours and signing leasing papers and everything along those lines. They were interesting jobs, I'll say that. They were very taxing emotionally, mentally, physically, and that's pretty much where that ends. I'm not saying it was a bad experience by any means, it wasn't, but it was a lot, and I'm glad I didn't do it for too long. I only did apartment companies for a few years, and I'm glad I kept it to only that, because it was a lot. And my last two jobs, and to finish up this video, so I worked for the local Hillel, at the college in the city that I lived in, and I did so many different jobs there. I was a receptionist. I was a executive assistant, to one of the main heads, in the catering, like restaurant part of the Hillel that I worked at. I helped with programs and events that were being put on by different groups, by different Jewish groups, at the Hillel. I mean, I did so many jobs. It was a little ridiculous. Good ridiculous, though. I don't regret any of them. None of those experiences were bad. I really enjoyed all my time at Hillel, and helping there. And in the last few years, not in the last few years, but like amongst those years of working at Hillel, every year, once or twice a year, we would have a fundraising event called Hillelathon, where anybody that wanted to sign up to be a fundraiser for Hillel, was of course allowed to, and you got to raise money for our building, for our Hillel, to be able to keep all the programs running, to be able to, send kids to Israel for the birthright trip, which I did end up going on, and to, of course, keep the lights on, and Friday night Shabbat services going, and all of that. You have to, of course, have the resources, have the money for. So I was a part of the Hillelathon every single year, the 1 or 2 times a year that it was done. And very shortly after the first few nights of doing it for the first time ever, I really started to find my niche and really started to see that I had a knack for fundraising and how good at it I was. And it wasn't just, I'm not trying to sound conceited in saying that, but it is confidence in knowing that I knew what to do and I knew how to say certain things the right way. And I knew the proper way to kind of manipulate a conversation, to persuade a donor to give, a certain amount of money, or I was very easily able to turn a no into a yes, or I was able to, talk and kind of negotiate or come to a compromise, I should say, of a donation from, said donor. And several times during the Halellathon that, like I said, when it was done throughout the year, I ended up being the top earner, the top fundraiser, very consecutively. Day after day, week after week, I ended up pulling in the most money every single time. Most of the time they did little like contests that if you were the top earner for the week, or, for a certain amount of time, you got a gift card or whatever. And to me, obviously, it was never about the gift card. It was never about that. It was just raising the money for, this wonderful Jewish nonprofit that I was working for, and to do something that I truly loved. And so I thank Hillel for that, because I literally would not have found my current job and would not have learned how good and fantastic I am at the job, which kind of leads me to when I moved here, to Pittsburgh. Shortly after moving here, I found the job I currently have, which, if any of you don't know, or to remind anybody that has watched previous videos, I'm a professional fundraiser. That is my job. That is my career. I absolutely love being a fundraiser. I fundraise for a lot of nonprofit organizations. As most of you know, I am a Democrat, so we do, it is a lot of the organizations that we call for are nonprofits, and the organizations that are not profits are political and are democratic organizations. So I call for democratic organizations. I call for reproductive rights organizations. So organizations like Doctors Without Borders, World Wildlife Fund, Planned Parenthood, NARAL. What else do we call for? Like off the top of my head that I'm trying to think of. We call for Smithsonian. There's so many. I could list off, and the video would be probably another 20 or 30 minutes if I were to list off all the organizations that I call for. Now, of course, we don't call for all of them at the same time, but in general, the list of clients is a long list. And I absolutely love the job. I've been with it now for almost 6.5 years. I truly am, and I know, again, this is going to sound conceited, but it's not conceited, it's confident. And everybody that knows me personally knows that I am fantastic at my job. And everybody that I work with and the company that I work for knows that, and has said to me that I am one of the best that they have. And I'm truly grateful for that. I love and how much they love and respect me. And I love and respect them. And it's honestly, out of all of the jobs, if I had to, now looking at the list that's behind the camera and going through all of it, oh boy, this is turning out to be quite a long video. I apologize. But hopefully you guys like a little bit of a longer ones, because I know some of my recent ones have been on the short side, so hopefully you'll be enjoying this long one. Anyway, but yeah, it is, if I had to go through the whole list and, say like my top 3, my current fundraising job would definitely be number 1, for sure, no questions asked. I think number 2 would probably be camp counselor. And then number 3 would probably be pretty easily, yeah, religious school teacher. Doing that. Those are my top 3 jobs that I've ever had, amongst all of the ones that I listed. And like I said, all of the jobs I had were fantastic. They taught me a lot. I don't regret a single job I've had since I started working, and getting paycheck, and earning my own money. There's literally not one job I regret having or that I'd go back and change in any way, shape, or form. They all have made me the person truly that I am, and they've all taught me so much in so many different aspects of life, and especially in my current one. All of the experience that I gained up until this point with the different jobs that I had, really, I was able to bring in a lot of those skills and skill set into my current job. And next year when I move, I actually do plan on keeping this current job as a side job. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, working in the political field and world, and helping out fundraising there as well, and in the political realm. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me in this little bit of a long, but hopefully enjoyable video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up. Let me know that you liked it. Please comment below if there's any jobs that you regret, or if there's any specific job that you loved. I'd love to hear from you. As any of you have commented on any of my channels, have seen and noticed, I interact, and I love interacting with you guys. So please interact with me in the comments. Feel free to follow me on social media at Marlo_Ty, Ty. It's in the description box below as well. My social media, as well as my email if you want to email me. And yeah, that's it. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video again, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.